Hi guys, today we're going to be looking at DGP Week 7. The first thing we're going to look for are any nouns that are in the sentence. Nouns talk about people, places, things, or ideas. The first noun that I see is the word alligators. We have to ask ourselves, is it a common or a proper noun? Proper nouns are things that would have names, such as, rather than saying the mountain, saying the Rocky Mountains, or rather than saying the girl, saying Annabelle. Are there any alligators in that swamp, Mom? The word alligators in the sentence is a common noun. We're going to mark it with a lowercase n. The next word we're looking for, the next noun, would be the word swamp. A swamp is a place, so we're going to call this a noun. It's going to be common because it's not the specific name of a swamp. Now, mom is a little bit trickier. In some cases, mom can be considered a proper noun if you're saying it's mom's name, or if you're just saying that is the student's mom, then it's going to be a lowercase n. Both of them are acceptable for the word mom or dad. In this case, I would capitalize mom, saying that it's a name. So because of that, I'm going to mark it as a capital N, meaning a proper noun. The next thing we're going to look for are any verbs in this sentence. There are 3 types of verbs. They can be action verbs, linking verbs, or helping verbs. In order to be a helping verb, you have to help another verb. In this sentence, there's only one verb, so I know it's not a helping verb. The verb is the word are. And in this case, are is not an action. I can't are something. It's going to end up being a linking verb. There equals alligators in that swamp, Mom. So because of that, it's going to be a linking verb. This is a current, happening right now situation, so it's going to be present tense. P-R-E-S, present. Next, we're going to look at the word there. There is answering the question, where? Because of that, we know it's an adverb. Adverbs answer the question, where? Any, in this case, describes the alligators. Which ones? Any alligators. Because it's describing a noun, it ends up being an adjective. A-D-J. That is describing the word swamp. Which swamp? That swamp. Again, we have an adjective. And the only word we have left is in. In is showing the relationship to a noun. In what? In the swamp. When you're showing relationship to a noun, such as in the box, around the box, between the boxes, we have a preposition. Preposition. Now we're ready to move on to Tuesday. As we look at Tuesday, we're going to look and see where is our subject and where is our verb. We always know there will be at least one subject and one verb in any sentence. There may be more than one. So we're going to ask ourselves, the easiest place to start is at the verb. We're going to mark the same verb that we saw on Monday. If there's more than one, we'll mark them. The verb here was are. So we're going to label it V for verb. We'll find out if this is transitive or intransitive in just a few minutes. The next thing we need to do is we need to say, what are? And as we ask that question, we realize it's alligators are. Because of that, the alligators are what's doing the state of being are. We're going to label that subject. Alligators are in that swamp. The next thing we need to do is look and see if we have any prepositional phrases. It starts with a preposition and it ends with a noun or pronoun. The preposition in the sentence is in, and the noun or pronoun that it's going to end on is the word swamp. You might be wondering why we're not going to include the word mom. Well, let's think about this. We're talking directly to mom in this case. Because we're talking directly to mom, we call this a noun of direct address. N-D-A. Noun of direct address. We're addressing mom. We're talking to her in this occasion, so it's an NDA. I wrote it out for you below so that you can see what this stands for. You do not need to include those words, unless it's helpful in your notes. We know that this is a prepositional phrase, so we're going to label it prep, PH, and we're leaving room at the front to label whether this is an adjective or an adverb prepositional phrase. In this case, we ask ourselves, is it are in the swamp or alligators in the swamp. Are makes more sense in this case, so it's modifying the verb. Since it's modifying the verb, it's going to be an ADV, adverb, prep phrase. ADV, prep phrase. We can't forget to label our object of the preposition. That is the last word in our prepositional phrase. It's a noun or a pronoun. In this case, it's the word swamp, OP, object of the preposition. We need to find out if are is a transitive or an intransitive verb. The way we're going to do this is we're going to do the subject-verb what test. This is how we find if there's a direct object. So we say alligators, subject, are, verb, what? Well, it would make sense to say alligators are in the swamp, but it can't be a direct object because it's part of a prepositional phrase. Direct objects are never a part of a prepositional phrase. That's written in our Tuesday notes. Because of that, we know there is no direct object. It's going to be an intransitive verb. Does anybody see the word I misspelled? That would be address. ADDRESS. We need to underline our subject one time. In this case, that's the word alligators. We also want to do any words that modify or describe alligators. Which alligators? Any alligators. All the other words are going to be describing our complete verb or complete predicate. Are there in the swamp, Mom? The only word that is not going to get underlined 2 times is mom. Mom is an orphan in this situation. It's a noun of direct address. It's not going to be a part of our sentence. Now we're ready to go on to Wednesday. Wednesday is when we look for clauses. We need 2 things in order to have a clause. We need a subject plus a verb. So we know in this case that we're looking for subject and verb pairs. We have 1 subject and 1 verb. That means we have 1 subject-verb pair. That means we only can have 1 clause in this sentence. Most of the time that's going to mean that we will start at the very beginning and we're going to see where we go until it stops making sense. Are there any alligators in that swamp, Mom? In this case, we're going to end it right after swamp. Again, because mom is a noun of direct address. It's not part of this clause. It's a word all by itself. It's one of the things that we allow to be an orphan living outside of the brackets, outside of the house, symbolically. We have 1 clause. When we have 1 clause, we know for a fact that of independent and dependent, it's going to be an independent clause. Unless we have 1 independent clause, we cannot have a sentence. This is an independent clause. That means it stands by itself. I can walk up to someone and say, are there any alligators in that swamp? It makes sense by itself. I don't need to add anything else to it. The next thing, because I only have 1 clause, this means it's going to be a simple sentence. And I'm going to ask myself, is this a question? Is this making a command? Is it a statement? Or is it exclaiming something? This is actually asking a question. So it's going to be interrogative, which means a sentence that asks a question. That's its sentence purpose. We're now ready to go on to Thursday. In Thursday, we are going to look at our punctuation and capitalization. This is the part that's most applicable for day-to-day writing. Our punctuation and our capitalization have rules, and we can look on our comma lists and our apostrophe rules and figure out when we need to use them. The first thing we need to do is we need to figure out if there are any words that need to be capitalized. If you said that mom was a proper noun, if you labeled it on Monday as a capital N, then you're going to want to capitalize the M here, because that means that it's like a name. We also always want to capitalize the first word of every sentence. After we do this, we're going to look and see if we need end punctuation. In this case, since it's a question, we're going to add a question mark. And then the very last thing that we're looking for is to see if there's any spots that we might need a comma. Are there any alligators in that swamp, Mom? Go ahead and flip back to your Thursday notes. Find the section that says commas. Begin skimming down that list and see if you can find a rule that explains why we might need a comma in the sentence that has a noun of direct address with it. If you look on the bottom half of the list, you're going to find your answer. If you're looking at number 11, that's exactly correct. This is rule number 11 that says that you need a comma before to divide or separate a noun of direct address. So in the example, it says, Tom, would you hand me that phone? After Tom, you'd put a comma. If the direct address comes later, then you put it before the direct address. Please don't sit there, Sue. We're going to look at our sentence now. Our direct address comes at the end. Because of that, rule number 11 tells us that we're going to need to put a comma to separate the NDA from the rest of the sentence. If you've done all of these things, you're ready to move on to your diagram. The first thing we look at on week 7 for our diagram is we want to figure out what to do with a noun of direct address, an NDA. It looks to me, if you look back in your Friday notes, that we're going to find our answer by looking down about halfway down the page. It's on a little line. Does anybody see the NDA? If you found it above the clause, then you are exactly correct. An NDA gets separated completely by the clause. It's not part of the sentence. It will go up above it. We have our typical clause, and we need to know how many clauses we're going to draw. So we're going to start with one clause, one cross. Two clauses, two crosses. How many clauses do I have? Only one. So I'm going to give myself room so that I can add to this if I need to. And we know that up above it is where we're going to put our mark for our NDA, our noun of direct address. Since we already know what that is, let's go ahead and fill that in and be done. The next thing we have to put in is our subject and our verb. The left-hand side of the diagram always has the subject. You can look back on Tuesday to get your answer. The subject of the sentence is alligators. On the right-hand side, you are looking for the verb. The verb in this sentence is are, and we're going to capitalize it because it is the first word of that sentence. Are there any words that are describing the alligators? That would be any adjectives that you've labeled on Monday. Modifiers go under the word that they modify. Any describes the alligators. Are any alligators? Now all we have left is in that swamp and there. There, we already said, was an adverb. It's describing the verb. So we're going to write there. That's from Monday. And all we have left is our prepositional phrase. A prepositional phrase goes under whatever it modifies. You already wrote this answer on Tuesday because we asked if it's are in the swamp or alligators in the swamp. You said it was are in the swamp, which means it modifies your verb. So you're going to put your prepositional phrase in its normal slant underneath the verb. The preposition always goes on the slanted line. The object of the preposition always goes on the straight line. And then any describing words are going to go on the modifying line underneath. That's going to be the word that, because that describes the swamp. If you've done all of this, I made one mistake. Did you catch it? I said that mom was a capital proper noun. Because I said that, I need to capitalize my mom. That's going to be it for today, everybody. Have a wonderful day.